the last part is we can only love others as much as we love ourselves. I was like, when I saw that, what does that even mean? What does that even look like? Because I can tell you right now, our soul shifters, there's going to be at least one that will disagree with that statement and say, I love this person, usually a kid, more than I love myself.
Welcome to another episode of Soul Shift Sessions podcast, where we have deep, transformative conversations to help you transform your mind to transform your life. I'm your favorite freedom and financial wellness coach, Coach Sapphire Star. And of course, I have my favorite co host, Coach
Kyle McLeod.
And we are here with you again to have a transformative conversation. But before we deep dive into the talk, I want to remind everyone that is listening to the sound of my voice to please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our Soul Shift Session podcast. It would really mean a lot to us in our journey to grow our channel, to impact the lives of everyone that is listening to us. Also, if you would like to join the tribe, and why wouldn't you join the tribe? Please go to www.soulshift.sessions.com, join the tribe. And if you would like to be a guest, if you would like to come on live, come into the studio and join us, join the conversation, again, go to www.soulshift.sessions.com, fill the form out that says be a guest. And you can also make sure you follow us on Instagram at Soul Shift Sessions. Coach Cal, what are we talking about today?
I love how you say, what are we talking about today? Like I know the answer to that.
You do. You're the oracle. You're the oracle.
So while we were talking, or while you were doing introduction, I was thinking that, is this more like a check-in? Like where, or is it more of a, where are they now type of thing? Like, this is where I was before, so where are you now? I don't know.
In the check-in in terms of the podcast, us individually, what are we
Well,
checking?
I'm saying that, what I'm saying is that you and I have done a considerable amount of self-development work since we've been together. And if you remember, BMO Raw talked about how there are things that we find ourselves susceptible to, even though we know better, even though we like taught people what not to do.
Yeah.
And yet we find ourselves doing some of the same things. And so, so when I say check in, I'm saying where you were before to where you are now. What have you held on to? What have you forgotten? What have you, what's running on autopilot? What new habits are running on autopilot that you had to work for before?
I love that. I love that. And first, just to answer that last question, the new habits that you had to work, this podcast, because there was a time where this podcast didn't exist. It wasn't a part of my life, my daily, weekly routine.
Yeah.
And that was something that I felt I had to, I don't want to say force, but I had to figure out how to fit it into my already busy life. But I will say, going in, when I got the call from you last year saying, hey, do you want to do a podcast? And I was like, yes. I am far more confident. It's now such an integral part of my life. I don't have to think about it. It is as consistent as me getting up to brush my teeth, brush my hair, wash my face. It's such an integral part of my life in such a short period of time. And I think, and I want to attribute that to consistency. I want to contribute that to commitment. I want to attribute that to when you call me, I was like, I'm all in. I'm all in. That's what I said.
You didn't even take, it wasn't even a thought. There was
It's
no.
like, if we're doing this,
Right.
let's have a time frame on what we're going to do, what's like a success plan and what that looks like for us before we ever get started. I don't want to be like, oh, let's just do it. Okay, if we're doing it, how often are we doing it? For how long? How many episodes? Because I wanted to be able to have something like goals. We always talk about goals and having something to work towards and just seeing the bigger picture vision. That was very important to me at the very beginning. And that is something that has been cultivated and developed with us along the journey. But we set those standards at the beginning. And now it's not even thought like, oh, I'm doing a podcast on Tuesday. Like it's not, it don't take a second.
You've been doing a podcast so long that you've reached the judgmental stage. Like you are now judgmental when someone else comes to say, hey, I want to do a podcast, especially if you don't pour it into them, especially if you don't show them certain things to do and not to do. And when you see them doing the not to do's, you have made it to the point where you are judging.
I would like to reframe that.
Does it sound so bad? Is that why we reframe it?
I'm not judging.
Okay.
I'm not judging.
Okay. All right.
I am a member. I am a Toastmasters. I am a member of Toastmasters International, where the motto is this is where leaders are made through effective communication. And one thing we're taught in Toastmasters, in addition to improving our public speaking skills, is the art and skill of evaluation. Being able to give constructive criticism and feedback to level people up. And so that's what I do. I'm giving constructive criticism to level up, especially to your point, if you come to me and ask, I've poured into you, and then when I provide the feedback, you get defensive. And now it's like, oh, okay. Okay. Because again, B. Wall, our most quoted guest. She's on season 1 and season 2. Make sure you go back and watch her episodes. Everybody wins. That's all I want is for everybody to win. But
yes,
everybody has to want to win too.
Yes. You are very correct. To be the yin to yo yang. I'm judging. Okay. I'm judging. Right. And there might be a reason why I'm judging. And of course, you're looking from this overall content style, like the way it looks, the way the vibe is, how it feels. But me, I'm looking a lot from an editor standpoint.
Yeah.
And I don't like editing. But you also know that I'm not half bad at it either.
You're good at it. You're good at it. I don't like half bad. I like you're good at it.
Well, I don't have anything to measure up, as far as like my skills go. So I definitely.
Oh, you do. You do. When you look at other people and judge, you be like,
Right.
My editor would never.
Right. My editor would never do this, right? And so when I'm looking at it, I know the amount of time that I'm willing to put in to not shortcut this show. And sometimes I have been up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't get it to work out just right. It didn't feel right, or there's something that was a little off. And it's like everything is so important to me, just the transition from one scene to the next, the spotlight of the person that's speaking, and then the transition going back to the group shot. Like all that stuff matters to me. Yeah. And so when I see people where that doesn't matter, or it does matter, but they're not willing to put in the time and energy to make it come out right, they're just like, you know what? Boom.
Yeah, I think Yeah, and rightfully so. Like I feel like we have a level of excellence that we have established and really unspoken
Yeah.
for both of us. Neither one of us is like, oh, you're gonna do this and you're gonna do this. It's
Right.
like that blind trust that you talk about. Like
Yeah.
I trust that when you say you're going to do something, you're not only going to do it, but you're going to do it with the level of excellence that's attached
Yeah.
to your character as I
Yeah.
know you to be.
Yeah. If my timeline may be off with other things outside of this podcast, but it's still going to be done with care because it matters. You
It
matter,
matters.
right? Like
Yeah.
the person I'm serving matters. And so yeah, but again, we have made it to the stage. You don't judge, but I'm the yin to your yang, so I will do the judging for the both of us. You get to empower and uplift and say we win, and I get to say,
Do better.
what the hell? What the
Do
hell?
better. If you
Do
better.
better. Okay. Do better.
I'm perfectly okay with that. That's that masculine and that feminine energy that we both bring to this podcast that really honestly it brings the balance.
Yeah.
It really does balance us
Yeah.
out. Now so the ball is back in your court for the check-in because I feel like the ball is gonna go back and forth and just
Yeah. It's
speak
gonna go back
that
and forth.
that
Okay.
last part that you said about something that maybe wasn't there, but there now.
Right. So is it back in my court now?
It's
Um,
in you now.
so for me, I feel like there are several aspects that I had to really learn about myself leading up to just this point where we are now. Because when we met, things were not the greatest at the time. And then you've seen me kind of work through some of my own journey type of challenges. And one of those things was, well, one, trying not to fit in, because
Mm.
that was something that I was really, really good at, was fitting in. I could go into an environment, check out the type of people, listen to the conversation, and know exactly how to participate in that conversation to fit in. And so, because people want to be loved and they want to belong, love and belonging, that's what we want. And so, one of the things that I had to learn how to do was that process of loving myself and figuring out what that actually looks like. Figuring out, um, oh, what's the word? Just what my behavior would look like of someone who loves themselves in this particular body.
Mm.
And so that has stuck with me throughout because I was able to identify what those things are. And if I'm not doing those things, then I can notice that my quality of life starts to decline. My experience of life starts to decline. So it's like, all right, what am I leaving out? And so I was telling you that yesterday I was listening to the Power of Vulnerability because it comforts me because I feel so seen when I'm listening to it. And Brene Brown talks about this definition that she created for love, which she says is ballsy at best and plain stupid at worst, right? So she gives this, and I love that she gives herself the grace to be human in front of her audience. And because that gives me permission to be human in front of the audiences that I serve. And so with that definition, it's so thick with words and there's so much to unpack. But the last part is we can only love others as much as we love ourselves. I was like, when I saw that, what does that even mean? What does that even look like? Because I can tell you right now, our soul shifters, there's going to be at least one that will disagree with that statement and say, I love this person, usually a kid, more than I love myself. And even in the audio, Brene talks about that people will use that as a rebuttal for her definition. And she brings up this really great point about how when your kid comes home crying because of something that happened at school, and you remember when you went through that same type of thing and how to quote unquote fix that so it doesn't happen for your child. She's like, you have to love yourself a whole lot to be in that space and just listen to the child instead of saying something like, I told you to wear this type of clothing and pull your hair back. You know,
Wow.
like, I told you to do that. This would have happened if you did what I told you to do. But letting your child experience that hurt and that pain without it triggering you, that takes a level of self-love.
And I love what you said, love and belonging, and speaking to that you only can love people as much as you love yourself. It's so profound, and it speaks volumes, because how can you love somebody more than you, like, when you really think about it,
Yeah.
how can you? But also too, how do you love yourself then? Like, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Because I know for me in my journey in life,
Yeah.
I love myself wholeheartedly. Now, I always say I'm Gucci with me. And that really says I love me more than anybody else. But that allows me to love these people with so much passion and care because I know how it feels to myself.
Yeah.
But I didn't always know that. I didn't always feel that. And in the past, there was a time in my life where I relied on external sources, on other people to show me what love was or what love is based on them loving themselves.
Yeah.
So that didn't always show up in a beautiful way. It didn't always show up feeling good. But because I really didn't have no reference other than what someone was showing me, whatever foundation someone else laid, that was all I had. And then when that was removed, the feeling that you felt is now a void because that source, that external source, is no longer there. And now you're going to search and seek, like, oh, where can I find it? And then you start settling, or you just start accepting any version of it, because the void is so deep, is so dark, is so like, well, just give me something. Even if it doesn't feel good, even if it's toxic, but it's like, okay, this is what I've been told what love is. If you're in an abusive relationship, if you grew up in an abusive household, you're taught this is love. So that's now your definition. And so you seek that based on that foundation. And so it takes a level of getting to a point in your life and deconstructing the things that we were taught,
Yeah.
reconstructing what we want, what feels good, what love is for us. But the flip side of that too is, unfortunately, but fortunately, we have to sometimes go through things to see what something isn't, to figure out what something is. Because it's like,
Yes.
okay, I know I don't want that. So what do is forcing you to face it? Well, what do I want? What feels good to me? What is love to me?
Dr. Starr.
Speak it. You better speak it.
All right. So there's a whole lot that you just said that I don't know if I've even, because you kept sparking these different thoughts. So one of those is, it sounded as if you were saying that part of loving yourself is being willing to face those darker sides or those darker moments. And I wholeheartedly agree. And as a male, I'm saying this as a male, but I haven't done the research to find out if this is how all males think. But I know for me, there are times where there are certain emotions that I just don't want to feel. Like, I don't want to feel it. And so, in order to not feel it, I will look for other outlets to avoid feeling that thing. And I understand that when your emotions are low, that there's a part of you I'll do a little better. If you're familiar with Abraham Hicks will say
Mhm.
that when you are having that negative emotion, that is your inner being disagreeing with the opinion that you have
Mm,
about you.
mm,
Hence and Abraham will talk about using that as a guidance system, almost like a GPS of navigating towards a better feeling. However, I do believe that there are just certain things within us that maybe I don't need to face it, but I need to ask the question and start asking questions like, why is it that I feel that I love this person more than I love myself?
mm.
What am I projecting on this person that I need? You know,
And how do you get yourself? Yeah.
and how do I give that to myself? Because if if I am projecting onto this person, um, as far as like I want them to love me and I want them to, you know, talk with me and be with me and hit these different buttons that are like relationship type buttons. Why am I projecting that on this person? So the question is, what is it I'm missing? What is it that I'm needing that I'm making this person responsible for that I need for
Yeah.
myself? Now, those answers may not feel comfortable. However, I do think that once you start to be honest with yourself and ask those questions and start to give yourself the time and the grace to come up with the answers for those, that life starts to shift a little bit.
Mm. Yeah, and I think just speaking to what you said about not wanting to feel things, and that's logical. And I feel like that's something we do as a survival mechanism, which is avoidance. I'm just not going to deal with it. But what I've learned in life is that the body remembers. The body always remembers. And then something happens, and now you're triggered and you're forced because your ability to choose not to feel it in that moment somehow is gone. You don't have the power anymore because the
Yeah.
body is like, oh. And one thing I realized, I was like, oh, I need to start dealing with these things because I don't like the feeling of, you know, again, trauma choosing to write my story without my permission. I
Yes.
don't like that
I don't like
feeling.
that. I don't like that.
I
Yeah.
don't like that. So what does that mean? That means, like you said, I have to now sit in the uncomfortable things and figure out
Yeah.
why and figure out how. Because that stuff will show up when you you
When
thought
you
you was
least
over it.
expect it, you thought you were delivered. You thought you were over it. You thought that you thought it was a scar, not a wound.
Hmm.
And then you
And
find out.
the body
Yeah.
remembers.
Yeah.
The body remembers.
It the loving of yourself is so to me it seems like such a complicated topic.
Really, I was about to say the opposite.
Well, the only reason I say it's complicated is because I have to figure out, okay, are these thoughts mine or
Ooh,
are these thoughts my trauma that
wow,
is it trying to write the story?
that's good. I
Do
love
you
that
see why I say it can be complicated? Because I have to literally
Hey,
filter. I have to filter my thoughts. I have to filter my emotions. And then I hopefully that I've chosen the ones that that my behaviors can align to that are not toxic to me, thus not being toxic to others.
and I believe that's what is called soul work, where and I'm just thinking like my journey and how I was able to navigate and filter and continually to do that process of getting to what loving myself is. And I really had to strip myself and really walk away from everything that I thought to be true. And what I mean is that I had to open my mind to a thing of, well, maybe this isn't true. I'm talking about the good, the bad, and everything in between.
Yeah.
I had to begin to question and challenge everything, not some things, but everything. And it took me stripping
Yeah.
away and then looking at things in pieces and saying, okay, how does this make me feel? And you really have to start digging deeper than just a surface level physically. You have to really tap into your mental. You have to really tap into your spirit, your soul, because I really, truly, and honestly believe our spirit will guide and tell us. But if there's so much outside noise,
Yes.
so much outside influence, that you can't even hear yourself think, it's going to be very difficult to get to the core of your spirit to hear what it is trying to say to you.
Yeah.
And so for me, it took me separating myself, isolating myself for a season to hear my spirit say
Yeah.
this, but also trusting it. That, oh, is that, well, I don't really know, because there's a lot of back and forth when you talk to self, like me versus me. There's a lot of back and forth. Like, what you mean? Like,
What's the line when you put yourself by yourself and then you found out that, oh, I'm really not by myself, am I? Because there's this other person
yeah,
in here that has a
it's,
lot to say.
there's a self-talk. There's the inner child in you speaking, screaming. There's so much going on. So how do you, and again, outside noise, how do you, and I say, get in touch, find a way to get in touch with your soul, with your spirit. And I will say meditation was one of the things that I wanted to learn and explore, because meditation helped me quiet the noise in my head.
Yeah. Meditation definitely helps with that. I I think that there are times where when we say meditation that people may not fully know, like, well, how do I do that? I remember being in that place, and one thing you mentioned that I think is paramount is isolating yourself. I may not be able to get up and just drop everything and go to another country at the moment, but I can get an hour to myself by myself without any other human beings being in the room and asking questions. I love how you just said question everything. I feel like we've said that in the past as well. Just question everything, because there are certain things that there are even methods of operation. The way you operate, is that because you discovered that this is the way for you, or were you pre-programmed by your culture and your family and your surroundings? Going back to the lady who used to cut the piece of ham off all the time and putting it in the oven. You remember that story? Right?
Yeah.
He's cutting it off. Everybody cuts it off generation after generation. And then when someone finally asks, why do we
Why?
keep cutting this piece off? Trace it all the way back to the first person that did it. Her oven was too small. She couldn't fit the whole thing in there. Right. And that reminds me to not only question everything, but question things at different phases of my life.
Mm. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
what was right back then may not be right for right now.
Yeah. And you talked about that residual things that is like left over, and it's like, does this still serve me? Does it not serve me?
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
reevaluating, because again, is healing, is a journey,
Yes.
is things are constantly changing and evolving, but also to understanding that we're talking from a place of the journey, what, because we're all on a journey.
Yeah.
but we may be in different places of the journey. So when you hear someone's story, you're essentially seeing the fruit. We talk about this all the time. You're seeing the fruit. But you may be looking at that person saying, well, man, I don't think I can get there to where they are. But you don't know what they've been through.
Yeah.
And so the reality is, in order for you to finish anything, you have to start. And you have to start somewhere. And it's not going to be this grandiose awakening in the way. It's a journey that takes time. Everything I'm speaking to you about in my life has been 15 years in the making.
Time.
15 years.
Time. The tree didn't just get big overnight. It took time for it to get there.
Yes.
If we think about the body, just everything about our body, from our minds to our souls, if we were to compare it to just being a biological computer, that when you were a baby, you were programmed and you received a lot of programming as you moved along, right? When you are reprogramming that computer, sure, we could take some programs out, put some new programs in, we could delete some programs and so on and so forth, or we could do a factory reset
Mm-hmm.
and get it all the way back to the beginning. And when you talked about stripping away, I feel like you were talking about doing like a factory reset.
Yep. Yeah.
And however, sometimes with computers, you could do a factory reset and there'll still be something in there from before. It's not the primary programming, but it's still there. And I remember we talking about the show Airwolf when we were on the phone one time. Do you remember we talking about that? It was like
Oh,
this helicopter that was like a super helicopter, but this guy
oh yeah.
he put a virus in it. It was like if I do not put in the code on this date and time, that he programmed it so that the helicopter would like freak out and start killing folks and just be a like a just a horrible machine, right? I feel like we can be like that though. That
Yeah.
there is programming in there that even if you do the work, you do the soul work, you take conferences and you go to courses and you do like all the self-development stuff, right? There's that stuff that you were trying to get rid of. There might be a little bit of it left over, and left unchecked.
Crash out. Crash. I have to stop myself from many crash outs every day. I have to have that self-talk again, that pep talk. Girl, is this really no, but I'm telling you, it's me personally.
Hey, when this starts happening up
No.
here, when it starts happening, watch out. Okay, watch out because it's about to hit the fan. I used to facilitate a segment of my classes where I would have the class, I'd have a flip chart and a line down the middle, and I would ask the question: how many of you have been in a relationship for 5 years or more? Some hands will go up, right? How many of you have ever been in a relationship for 5 years or more? The rest of the hands will go up, right? Everyone's been in a relationship for at least 5 years, okay? And then I would say, how many of you know exactly which buttons to push to make them go boom? Hands will go up. And I'll say, how many of you, like, how many of you have people that they know exactly what buttons to push on you and you'll go explode? Hands will go up again. So we both know vice versa. So I said, so basically, we are like machines. You push the right button combination and it explodes. And then I go a little further and say, think back to the time where you were your lesser evolved version of yourself, right? That version that said, yeah, I could do 3 years in time. I could do time for 3 years. Sure, I could do that. No problem, right? Like that time where you didn't have a whole lot to lose, right? Now you got stuff to lose. You got houses, cars, people.
Right.
Like you have stuff to lose. And they're chuckling at this point, just like you. And I would ask them to describe some of the behaviors that, when those buttons get pushed, what we would see if we were a fly on the wall. Yelling, screaming, cussing, slashed up tires, busting out windows. Like, all the stuff comes out depending on where I am teaching the class. If it is more urban, you're going to hear some urban stuff. If it is, but it was crazy is like the ones that's, your VPs and your people who are high ranking officials, when they get to this part of the exercise, a
They
lot of
come
their answers are very similar to
urban too. Hmm. We take them masks off, that code switch, and go out the window like, oh, okay, yeah.
who I really am.
You got the right one and the wrong one. That's my favorite time.
You got the right one and
And
the wrong one
wrong at the same time.
at the same time.
Yes.
And so I have them say, um what do you need to know, or what needs to happen before you go explode now? And people will throw out things and like, I have to stop and breathe. I'm like, before you either stop and breathe. And people will throw out all these things. My answer will always be before that, before that, before that. And finally, if they haven't given up, someone will say, I have to recognize in the moment that it's about to go down. And that's it. Like, if I recognize in the moment whatever is about to go down, looks like, I know we're talking in the context of like having a reaction based off of what the buttons that are being pushed, but even you push your own buttons.
Yeah.
You will have your own, and now there's no one to do it. There's no one to
check.
To check, right? There's no one to do this to.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, and I'll speak about the males, is that if you have a little boy in a grown man's body, then it does end up them lashing out. They're mad at themselves, but they end up lashing out at others.
Mm.
They haven't figured out how to love themselves. They haven't figured out that the behaviors that they are exhibiting are a result of the fact that either they haven't done the work. Everyone has bowed down to them. I mean, you can look at the leadership that we have in our administration. How many people are actually there that are just little boys and girls?
Yeah.
In grown bodies.
Yeah.
And
little robots, not just programmed.
Little robots.
Yeah.
That are easily susceptible to the overpowering robot, right? The biggest kid in the high chair.
And I think because I feel like we found our rhythm and our flow in the conversation today is just about finding that self-love. And, and I was talking about being willing to strip things away. But I also believe that there has to be a level of discovery. Because once you strip it away, now it's discovering and figuring out, well, what do I like? What makes me feel good? What makes me feel love? Even in those moments of someone giving me half-ass love, what was something in there that I really was like, oh, I like that. I like that. And being open to discover new things too, because those are past things that we're using, but discovering new things about yourself. I'll give an example for me. After escaping a very toxic marriage, being in a relationship for 10 years, I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize who I was. And I had lost myself because I was so busy serving everyone else. Because, as a mother, as a wife, those are like badges of honor. Oh, I take care of my kids. I take care of my husband. I am the best at my job and what I do.
I don't get no sleep.
But me, Sapphire, is dying mentally, emotionally, and physically, serving everyone else. Like I'm dying on the cross. And so when I escaped that and I looked in the mirror and I was like, man, well, what do I like to do? And I was like, well, I want to lose some weight. And I was like, well, how do I do that? And I was like, okay, I joined the gym. I was like, you know what? I want to start running. I want to start getting in shape because I couldn't walk to the mailbox without being out of breath. And so that meant like, okay, I'm going to join the gym. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get on the treadmill.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, I'm going to sign up for a race. And I signed up for my first 5K because it felt good to me making a decision to do something, trying something, and then feeling good as a result of actually applying these things in my life. Not necessarily knowing what the result was going to be. Almost to the point, the funny story, like my first 5K, I won second place. And honestly, it was because I was the only one in that age group. Like it was only a few.
Like full disclosure. Full disclosure.
It was only like in that age group. So it's kind of like by default. But I felt so good. And I was like, oh, I think I like this, to the point where I was like, I'm gonna sign up for another race. And then I go to the gym. They had a marathon. And I tell the story all the time. And I was like, sign me up for that.
Yeah.
So 5K marathon. And she was like, have you ever done a marathon? I was like, no, but I've done a race before. I got this. And she said, you know how far this is? I said, no. She said it's 26.2 miles. I was like, what?
Like, huh? I'm confused.
People do this?
People do that. Yeah.
People pay you, sign up to do this. And she said, yes. But the funny thing is, because you know me and my mom, I don't accept defeat. The funny thing is it sparked something in me to be like, oh, I got to start somewhere. It sparks in me to be like, I'm going to challenge myself. One day I'm going to do that. And so it went from running more 5Ks and then signing up for the Peachtree Road Race to 10K, which I've done the Peachtree Road Race 10 times.
Wow.
10 times. It's a very popular race in Atlanta, Georgia. I've done that 10 times. And then I went to a half marathon. And then I got to a point where I was like, well, if I want to go further, I need to hire a coach. And I just randomly walking in the park, I saw this guy who had done the Boston Marathon so many times. And he was like, well, I'll coach you for free. And he was coaching me and guiding me. And eventually I ran my first marathon. But it took back to my point was being open to discover, well, what is it that I like and want to do, and figuring that out.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one ride I had, it was kind of long. I think I did like 70 miles that day. And I posted on Instagram 70 miles. And then in the caption, I wrote, I'll be century ready soon, ready to do 100 miles. The following week, after reading that freaking book, I dropped 140. So I thought I was going to work my way up to 100, but the very following week, I dropped 140 miles. And it shifted my mind. And I think I even said something to you via text message, or maybe through Marco Polo, where when I was riding with a group, like last week, and they're doing what they're doing, and in my head, I'm like, shit, I could drop 100 on these folks anytime. So, I'm good. I'm good. We only doing 60 something. Yeah,
that's it. We only doing 70. Oh, that's
not a big deal.
That in my sleep, like.
And then I did something, and actually that only turned out to be 45 miles that day. But what was interesting was
only guys.
Because the next day, which was Sunday, I did something that I probably have not ever done, which was a back-to-back of big miles. And the next day, not only did I do the same mile, I did way more. I did 60-something miles on that Sunday. So over the weekend, I had done over 100 miles. And in my head, I'm like, when I'm starting to feel the pain, I'm like, this will pass. And it's going to pass because I know it's going to pass because I've been here before. It will pass. Just keep going.
That's a word. We can end the podcast right there. This too shall pass. Just keep
Go.
going. Quick question. What
Yeah.
made you discover, since we're on discovery, what made you discover and pick up cycling?
Oh, that's an easy one. My wife wanted a bike, and I knew that if I was going to get a bike, I was going to go to a bike shop. And I answered the question incorrectly because she said, "Are you going to like ride with people? Are you going to ride, for sport, if you will?" I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that. I'll think." As a matter of fact, this bike only costs this much. Give me two. That way, my wife don't have to ride by herself. Her
Wow.
bike, she did go out on the bike a few times, but I had never had something so light. And so because it was so light, I'm like, I could go a lot of places on this bike. The tires were solid, so they were never flat. I'm like, I could go a lot of places on this bike.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's what started happening. I started going a lot of places on that bike. And then I found out that for the type of riding that I really wanted to do, I needed a different style bike. And once I
Wow.
got that, once I got that bike and I did my research, actually, I ordered it, then did my research to figure out what I wanted on it, and then changed the order so that it accommodated the research that I had done. So
Mm.
now I have this bike, and I got it in 2019, and it is still current with the technology, with the ability. It is still current in regards to the way it is. And people still say, "Man, that thing looks like it is still brand new." And I'm like, because I know how to take care of this bike.
I love that. I love that. So what I'm hearing is someone else wanted to ride a bike and you were like,
She
okay,
didn't
sure.
pick it up. Yes, she
And
did.
she did,
She
and
didn't fit.
you discovered a love and joy for cycling.
Couple things. One was it's probably the only sport that I could do that it didn't matter about anybody else around me.
Mm.
I didn't have to depend on anybody else, and nobody else had to depend on me.
And so you
And
didn't have to fit in.
I didn't have to fit in. If I want to be by myself, I could be by myself.
Look at that. Look at
And
God.
being by myself, which I do a lot of, it also makes me good enough to ride with groups of people now. And
Mm.
so when I'm with a group, I'm a lot stronger because I ride by myself a lot. And that's, a strength builder. But also, I've learned enough about the sport that I understand how to ride with people. So I know how to ride with people, and I know how to ride by myself.
And that goes back to you only can love people as much as you love yourself.
Took the time to train myself.
Yes, because you
Yeah.
know how to do
How
it with yourself. So now you know how to do it with and to other
other people.
people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm doing 100 miles on Friday with
I love
people. With people.
I I love this for you. And I wanted to say one more thing because things are always like in threes. We talk about meditation because here at Soul Shift Sessions, we're having deep transformative conversations to help you transform your lives. So we want to give you tools. We want to give you, we don't gatekeep over here. We share everything that we go through because our vision, our purpose of this platform is to share our story to empower others. That's what we're all about. And also to let you know that you're not alone. And I think the third thing, we got meditation, we have discovery. The third thing I think is imagination. And when I
Uh,
say imagination, I mean dare to dream bigger than you probably ever could imagine. Dare to do it.
your creativity is dependent on the health of your imagination.
Yeah.
And I love little kids when they are playing their imaginary games and all that
Yeah.
stuff, because it's like it's healthy imagination, which means that they are tapped into their creativity. They are creating pictures in their minds. They are communicating those pictures that are in their heads out loud. And it's great. For an adult, I hate the fact that we encounter people that are saying, when are you going to grow up? When are you going to start being more serious? And there is a level of responsibility that all of us adults need to hone in on. But honing in on that responsibility doesn't mean that you need to let go of that imagination and that creativity.
Yes. Yes.
And
That
in
is
this climate, now more than ever,
yes.
creativity is a must have now for your spiritual health, your mental health, your emotional health, and even in your pockets. And I'm saying it in a comical way, but I'm so serious because I mean, IBM laid off thousands of people in favor of an AI tool that they have. So, what are those thousand people that are not creative? Like, if 500 of those people are not creative, what are they going to do? They're going to do the
Mhm.
same things that they did in the past to get to where they were. But there's no guarantee that what they did in the past is going to work in 2025, because in the past there was no AI.
Yeah. And, people always talk about the threat of AI and how I see it, because in my particular field and industry, we always had AI. We always had, not always, but the 24 years that
Right.
I've
You had
been
access to AI tools before the
way
mainstream public
before
had it.
mainstream. And so we saw the writing on the wall. But one thing I do know to be true is number one, AI doesn't have a soul. It can never have a soul. And that's something that we possess as human beings that cannot be recreated. They can try to like duplicate or whatever, but it can't be
Right.
recreated.
Yeah.
And so having that soul and believing that, but these things, they have ability to fail, dysfunction, malfunction, all the things. And so you still need a human brain intellect to be able to come in and still work alongside with these things. And
Yeah.
so, but you have to still believe that. You can't be conditioned and programmed to the point where you're like, "Well, woe is me, I can't do
Right.
anything." And also having, especially as entrepreneurs, having a level of delusion, like being a little delulu. Like you need to have that tap into the imagination, even if you're struggling from a scarcity mindset or a limited mindset. Because I can think of many stages in my life where I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't know how to get there, but I don't want to be here. So I ask the questions, how do I get XYZ? But also saying, this is what I want. But then once I get there, you know what I discovered? I could have never imagined where it had taken me.
Yeah.
I could say, okay, because
That's
by
why you
thinking,
start.
that limited thinking that got me that far
Yeah.
has taken me to a place and now it's opened up so many things. But just starting with somewhere, asking the question, challenging the status quo, believing in your heart and soul that I can have whatever I put my mind to and more.
So I don't know where I heard what I'm about to say. I have no idea. It could have been on social media, could have been anywhere. But someone said about oftentimes we are preparing for what can go wrong. But what if we prepare for what could go right? What if we went into the engagements, all the engagements, thinking about how right it is going to go? What if this does work? What if this? And I love asking the question, is that necessarily true? Because there are certain things that people will tell you that you cannot do or cannot have, and they will give you the supporting factors for the reason why they come to that conclusion.
Child, that's a story of my life.
But you also ask, what if? What if that's not true? What if it is possible for me to pack up everything? sell the stuff that I got, live a life as a minimalist, and leave the country. What if I did that?
Yeah. And I don't know where this come from. I always say this to you. I say I don't know where this come from in my mind. And I think it's because as a kid, I just love adventure. I love discovery. I love going outside and be like, well, what's over there?
Yeah.
And even when there were external forces that told me what I couldn't do, that told me as a kid, I would get in trouble. I would get spankings for talking too much. That was a behavioral thing
Yep.
that
Yep.
I was talking too much. I was an honor student, got all A's, talking too much and getting trouble. And the reality was I was always done with my work before everybody else.
That's
And
why you're
instead of
talking.
the exactly, and instead of the teacher challenging me, giving me more, because
Right.
our system is anyway,
Very
they would be like, sit down and be quiet.
instead of
And
stretching you, they stifled you.
exactly, exactly. But something in my soul and my spirit is like I when I want to do something, I do it. And it never dawns on me. It never dawns on me that I can't do it until I get to the point where it's like, oh, I couldn't do that. All right, next. Like it going, I don't know, but I don't know where that comes from. But I feel like I've always had that in my mind that if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it.
You know, my mother used to complain about me taking apart the toys that were like electronic toys.
I used to love to do that too.
I find me some screwdrivers. And I got to see how it works. And then it's like, all right, I don't understand how any of this works. I don't know what any programs do. Like circuit boards and stuff like that. Like I had no training in that. I'm like, I'm in third grade, okay? Maybe even second grade. I'm
Yeah.
taking apart stuff, toys had so much higher quality back then too. Like people actually really put thought into how these things work. So but then as an adult, mom needs something fixed. It's calling me.
Yeah.
You was
Yeah.
always taking stuff apart as a little kid. I'm sure you could figure out how to fix this thing.
My aunt as a kid, my aunt gave me a chemistry set. And one thing I loved about that chemistry set was the fact that, and obviously as a kid, I'm not sure what's happening. But one thing I love was the fact that I can take something, two things that exist, put it together and create a whole new thing.
Yeah.
That was something that was just like, oh, this is so cool. But here I am, a scientist now.
Chemistry set led to
Had
you
the most
being a
chemistry set.
clinical laboratory scientist.
Clinical laboratory scientist, but what you had asked me that question. You was like, "Are you this way because you're a scientist?" And I'm like, "No, I'm a scientist because I'm this way." It's the
Mm.
other way around.
Yeah.
Because I've always had this thought process. It's just the career I attracted, the career that necessarily worked with my personality that I've always had. So
I can
yeah.
appreciate the level of logic that comes out of your brain though, because there's a level of chaos that comes out, and there's logic as well. But like
Organized chaos.
right, when we're talking about logical things, you and I can like really think through some things. But what I also enjoy is you will come to me like I don't like jigsaw puzzles, like the physical ones, but you'll
Mm.
come to me with like a puzzle, like a speaking puzzle.
Cloud nine.
Right. And I'm like, oh, well, just do this, and it's not even like you'll just give me the framework and I get to add pieces. Like yesterday is a perfect example of that. You wanted to resonate with people's imagination. And I'm like, people love their people. You
Yeah.
need to get them thinking about the people that they love.
Yes, yes. You're such a great coach. Listen, guys, if you need a speaking coach, a leadership coach, a business coach, Coach Kyle is your guy. He be being all humble on here,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
he's really good at what he does.
You give me a little prop puzzle. I, because it's like when I work with you, I honestly feel I'm hoping this is how it feels in the NFL when they're in the film room.
Oh,
and the
yeah.
coaches are talking to the players, and they're like, what they're looking at the screen, and they're identifying what they can do, what they can do differently, how to, when this situation comes up, what to do. And I feel like we collaborate. So I'm not
Very
telling you what to do. We are coming to an agreement on what's going to be the best course of action that you feel is right for you.
yeah. Yeah. It's definitely and I say that when I'm coaching, I tell my clients, this is a collaborative partnership. I'm partnering with you to help you achieve your financial goals by providing strategy, by providing accountability, by providing consistency. But you have to be an active participant.
Can't be that person. I can't make this happen for you. And that was one of the things that prevented me from even wanting to coach in the first place, is because I made up in my head
That's
that
oh yeah.
your success was dependent on me,
Oh no.
when
No.
it's dependent on us.
Yeah, together.
Yeah, it's
We're
us.
partnering together. Yep,
And
absolutely.
once I got that, it changed the way I even talk with people about what they're up to,
Yeah,
because I'm asking questions and or even like, have you considered, and just putting the pieces of the puzzle together. But
yeah, yeah,
everybody's puzzle is different.
absolutely. And I believe that. I believe that we speak as coaches, we speak life into people, but these people still have to come to us with some level of skill, with some level of willing, some level of, again, participation. Because one of my favorite coaches in the NBA was Doc Reed when he was coaching Boston Celtics. And you
Man,
think about his ability to see the talents, to see the skill sets of his players,
yeah,
but being able to put that together in such a strategic way
yeah,
that everyone get the goals that they want, but the players still have to come with a level of game.
yeah.
He still has to come with a level of game, and together they win NBA championship. Shots out to Boston Celtics, big four, big three. That
Now,
kept
when
that
you
that's
talk,
my husband in my head. I don't care how I fight him.
that's a husband in your head.
Well, he used to be.
I remember when the Chicago Bulls made a move for Dennis Rodman, and I was
Mm.
like, I immediately, like, I would say my heart sank, but my heart kind of sank because I knew deep down inside my team no longer had any chance with this player with these specific set of skills on that team.
Team. What was your team?
I'm a New York Knicks fan.
Mm, that's cute.
Now, first of all, I have a hard time watching basketball at all these
Yeah,
days.
I don't watch it anymore,
Like,
but
it's
I
such
was
a challenge to watch because they're just chucking them threes left and right. Everybody want to be Steph Curry.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. This
but
was a long time ago when I was watching sports.
right. At the time, I understood what rebounding meant. If you have someone that is, all he cares about is getting the ball off that rim on the offensive side, that means Mike gets more shots, Scotty gets more shots, Steve Kerr gets more shots. Like, this is a problem
Yeah,
for all
yeah.
the other teams, because these shooters are going to get more shots.
And the
And
yeah, in the games or the teams that won championships that were just unstoppable were the ones that were working together as a team.
as a team, and understood the roles and played their roles with perfection. That was, I don't know if Phil Jackson was the first to do it, but I don't know who was the one that started saying, like, all right, I need this type of skill for this spot, and I need this particular skill in that spot. And once you start assembling the different skills, well, now all of a sudden you have this whole team of specialists
Mm.
that know exactly what they're doing, and they just follow behind Michael Jordan. And Isaiah Thomas talked about how Dennis Rodman would study. He wouldn't get in the layup line. He would just study people while they're doing their shots. He would count the rotations of the ball. And I say like, hey, man, you need to get in line. You need to get in, get in the warm up line. And he's like, I'm counting. He's talking about you counting. And he's like, I'm counting the rotations. So that way, when you miss, I know where the ball is going to go. So if it's so many rotations and it's over, I know where it's going to go. And if it's under the rotations, I know where the ball's going to go. Basically.
Wow.
That means you have to learn each person's shot, the way the ball moves in the air. Now, all we saw as an audience was Rodman wilding out off the court, or Rodman wilding out on the court, right? But not realizing that all of this stuff is part of his strategy when it comes to being on the court. If I get under your skin, now you focusing on me and you ain't focusing on Mike.
Yep. Absolutely. He gonna come
and I ain't no punk.
and finish it. And that's something too, like as we're ending the podcast, like we're talking about team precision. Find you a tribe. Surround yourself with people that it's like when you look at them, you're like, man, this I want this type of love for myself. Whatever that person is demonstrating, illustrating, and then you gravitate towards that, because now you can learn how to truly and honestly love yourself from someone else who is doing the same thing. Find you a team, okay? Find you your starting 5 lineup. You feel me?
Identify what you like. Identify what you like. Identify who you like. Identify the things that they do that you like. That's what you're saying. And start to collect those things for yourself.
Yes.
Before you know it, you are loving yourself through and through, because you're doing it on the journey.
Well on the journey of self-love. And I love what you say, loving. This is actively happening, actively practice, actively doing every single day. Love yourself, hug yourself, talk to yourself nice. You know how people like, talk to me nice, talk to yourself nice.
Nice. You know, I've been meaning to mention our guest from last week, Fatima, but there's so much of like what we've talked about today that she talked about last week, such as listening to yourself.
Yeah.
She said a lot of times we don't spend enough time with ourselves, so we're not hearing it. So if you listen, it'll tell you. Your body will tell you what it needs.
And what was that? That's episode, so season 2, episode
16.
Is it 16?
16.
Make sure you go back and listen to season 2, episode 16 with Love and Healing with Fatima. I just want to throw that out.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Woo, this was a good one.
Oh, wow. I love how we're like guys, soul shifters. We're always in the green room. Not always. Okay. Sometimes we have it together. But here lately, there's been this level of freedom. And honestly, I just believe in security and where we are in this podcast, where we literally can be like, just show up and be like what we're talking about, but feel like, oh, we're gonna hit this out the park. Like, I don't even feel like I have to have a topic beforehand, because I do believe there's beauty in these moments of just true genuineness, true authenticity, true freestyle improv. Because I feel, and I'm sure we feel, that you guys can feel the authenticity. You can feel how genuine we are and how we care and love our soul shifters.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I remember.
Go ahead. The cool
I was going to say that the cool thing is that because we never know what we're going to say, but we do give each other the grace to excuse me. Give each other the grace to have a separate opinion. A lot of times we're in agreement, but if our opinions are going in separate directions, we love each other enough to allow that conversation to kind of flourish. And I think that contributes to the authenticity. Now, a lot of times we are sharing the same brain when we're out here. A lot of times we're doing that. But again, we're letting them in on a conversation that you and I are having with each other. And we've never changed that aspect. Like we are always, when it's just you and I, what are we talking about today?
Yeah. Because sometimes, guys, we will have a podcast before the podcast. I said, no, we're not doing this. Just go ahead and start. Just start.
We almost did it today. We almost did it today.
Almost. And I was like, no, we're not doing this. No, we're not doing
I
this.
appreciate you for that. Like, because I'll keep going. I'll keep going.
And I know us. I'm like, nah. Hit start. This thing, let the magic happen. So I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Guys, if you enjoyed the conversation, there was something that stood out to you, something that you're like, man, I believe that I can implement this practice of self-love today. I can start today with that practice. Please put in the comments section and let us know what has stood out for you today. Of course, sharing is caring. And if you know someone that can use a soul shift, please share this podcast with them. Make sure you are subscribed to our podcast. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to all the things for soul shift sessions. Any final words, Coach Cal?
Of course, there's a final word. Of course, there it is. The ones who ask questions don't lose their way.
I feel like that's a bumper. That's beautiful. I love that. The ending and the beginning. I love that. That's very apropos. And one other thing I love about us is I remember when we would take turns with the intro and do different things. But I love that we settle in on like, you know what, that's your lane. And you know what, that's your lane. But it was really the final words, the intro, and how we've kind of embodied those roles. It just kind of happened. We didn't necessarily, okay, this is what you're going to do. It just happened. And I love that for us.
I'll tell you right now, if we have a guest and you not showing up for that thing, I don't know who's doing the intro.
You have to do a cold intro.
Like, for the intro. That's what it's going to be.
Can't be here. I know you can't be here, but I need you to send me that pre-recorded intro for my editing.
Right. Either that or I'm just going to take one that we already have from a million of them and just cut it and just put it in there. Like, you're going to have a different outfit on. They're like, that's the same outfit she had last week. That's because this came from last week. That's why.
With that, guys, always remember to let your soul go. Until next time, be great.
So long, everyone.